Good afternoon, dear colleagues and guests. Let me declare open a session of the Dissertation Council for the Defense of Thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna, the degree of candidate of Historical Sciences, academic specialization 070015, History, International Relations and Foreign Policy, on the theme Specificity of Activities of International Non-Governmental Organizations in the field of cultural cooperation, on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st centuries. Under order, St. Petersburg University, dated the 29th of May 2020, number 4789/1. May Pagodin Sergei Nikolaevich, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Politics, St. Petersburg University, was appointed Chairman of this Dissertation Council. Under order, St. Petersburg University, dated the 23rd of March 2020. Let's call it technical break. Boris, I have to call it technical break. On the order, St. Petersburg University, of the 23rd of March 2020, number 2304/1, our meeting is held in the remote access mode, which includes my colleagues, members of the council. The members been approved by the order, 29th number 14. So let me introduce them to you. Valerievna Maria Lvovna, Doctor of Political Sciences, Associate Professor, Department of World Politics, St. Petersburg University. Maria Lvovna, can you see and can you hear us? Yes? Okay, thank you. Koibayev Boris Georgievich, Doctor of Political Sciences, Professor, Head of the Department of Political Science of the North Ossetia State University, named after Kostel Ivanovich. Can you see and hear us? Boris Georgievich? Yes, I can see and hear you. Thank you. And Ospanova Igorem Valerievna, Doctor of Political Sciences, Head of the Department of Regional Studies, Eurasian National University, named after Gumilyov, Kazakhstan. Can you see and hear us? Yes, I can see and hear you. It's very nice to see you. Thank you very much. And the degree applicant, Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna. Can you see and hear us? Yes, thank you. Also, I'd like to say that one other member of our dissertation council, Fokin Vladimir Ivanovich, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor of School of International Relations at Petersburg University, is absent today for a good reason, but he submitted his review. So all the members of the dissertation council, as well as the applicant, are present, and we can all see and hear each other very well. Dear colleagues, since our meeting is held in the remote access mode under St. Petersburg order of the 23rd of March 2020, number 2304/1, I invite all the participants to follow the procedure closely in case there's a technical failure, and so you please inform me, and I shall call a technical break. I shall call a technical break until such issues are eliminated. Agreed. If the connection with me is lost, I'd like to ask next person on our list to call a technical break, and if connection with me cannot be re-established, I have to ask Maria Lvovna to preside the meeting. Maria Lvovna, do you agree? Let us continue our session. To improve quality of communication, dear colleagues, please keep your microphones switched off, but remember to switch them on when you're given the floor. Let me also inform you that our meeting is being recorded and broadcast online at St. Petersburg University website. The speeches are being simultaneously translated from Russian into English or from English into Russian. The applicant's page currently displays an email address to which during our session all the listeners of online broadcasting of the Dissertation Council can express their opinions and send questions to the degree applicant online regarding the thesis and the ongoing academic discussion of her presentation. These questions shall be forwarded to me by our technical service, and I shall read them out during the discussion part. Questions should be strictly related to the applicant's presentation and the content of her thesis, and must include the full name, position, and place of employment of the author of the question. Questions that are not related to the academic discussion, to the discussion of the thesis, the text, or assessment of the thesis itself shall not be presented. In accordance with the order of awarding at St. Petersburg University the degree of Candidate of Science or Doctor of Science, approved by the local regulations of St. Petersburg University, hereinafter referred to as the order, a session of the Dissertation Council is considered competent if at least 2/3 of the approved composition of the Dissertation Council are present, but not less than 4 persons. Our Dissertation Council consists of 5 members. At the moment, 4 members are present, all in the remote interactive mode. As audio-visual contact has been established to all of them, as well as the degree applicant. Thus, we have the quorum. I instruct the curator of today's session, Zokoeva Ekaterina Vyacheslавna, officer of the Dissertation Council Activities Support Department, to draw up the attendance list in which the Dissertation Council member present should be recorded and indicate their work mode, in this case remote. Let me set forth the following procedure of today's session with the approximate duration of approximately 2 hours. First, the chairman's summary report on the main content of documents submitted by the degree applicant and their compliance with the applicable regulations. Answers to possible questions, approximately 5 minutes. Second, brief presentation by the degree applicant outlining the key points of her study, approximately 15 minutes. 3, questions to the applicant strictly on her report, no more than 2 minutes for each question. 4, answers of the applicant, maximum 5 minutes for all the questions. 5, speeches of all members of the Dissertation Council with their reviews, with their assessment of the thesis, and a speech of the degree applicant, and to opinions, questions, and suggestions to the applicant. No more than 10 minutes for each speaker. 6, speech of the chairman and his review, approximately 10 minutes. 7, final answers of the degree applicant to questions, no more than 5 minutes. 8, presentation by the chairman of questions to the applicant sent during the discussion and broadcasting the meeting of the Dissertation Council at the Petersburg University website. 9, answers of the applicant, no more than 2 minutes per each question. 10. Speech of the academic advisor of the degree applicant, no more than 3 minutes. 11. Dissertation council members' discussion of the results of the defense before the open voting, during which the broadcast sound shall be switched off approximately 5 minutes. 12. Open individual voting and counting the votes by the chairman of the dissertation council. The results shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. 13. A decision on awarding or not awarding the degree to the degree applicant. 14. Closing remarks of the applicant, no more than 2 minutes. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions or objections to this procedure? If no one has any objections, let's start running the procedure. But first, please switch off your mobile phones. Thank you for your understanding. So let's start. The thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna, for degree of candidate of historical sciences, academic specialization 070015, history of international relations and foreign policy, on the theme specificity of activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation, on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st centuries, was accepted for defense by the order of the academic secretary of St. Petersburg University, dated the 3rd of March 2020, number 1487/1. Zokoeva, Zalina Valerievna, wrote her thesis, St. Petersburg University, under the guidance of Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Politics, St. Petersburg University, Yagya Patanyar Saidovich. A number of publications which set out the main academic results of her thesis, according to the list presented, is 4. In journals peer-reviewed from the list approved by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation, 4 publications. In journals indexed in the Web of Science and Scopus Science databases, no publications. The applicant submitted to the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University the full package of documents for acceptance of her thesis for consideration and defense. All the documents comply with Article 12 of Section 3 of the order. All the documents submitted by the applicant, according to the information I received from the curator, comply with the requirements and are kept in the applicant's attestation file. Copies are available from the officer of the Dissertation Council Support Department, curator of today's session, Ekaterina Vyacheslavovna Sazonova, who is currently in touch with us. Before giving the floor to the degree applicant, do you, dear council members, have any general questions to the applicant, including whether it's necessary to disclose and review the entire list of documents submitted by the degree applicant? There are no questions. Thank you. Then let's give the floor to Zalina Valerievna. Thank you. Hold on a second. I also have to ask Dissertation Council members if they can see the presentation well. Yes, I can. Yes, we can. Thank you. Yes, we can. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear Chairman, dear members of the Dissertation Council. Let me introduce to you my thesis, Specificity of the Activities of International Non-Governmental Organizations in the Field of Cultural Cooperation, on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, submitted for the degree of candidate historical sciences, specialization 070015, History of International Relations and Foreign Policy. Let me proceed to relevance of my study. International is a political reality, and the influence on noticeable increase in the country's transformation of the international system in the 21st century. Currently, the system of modern international relations is the increasing role in the new centers of power, increasing non-traditional security issues, increasing interdependence between countries, and the steady increase in the number of international non-governmental organizations, and their increasing impact on the course of the world. The regional political processes, which is the result of cross-country linkages, growth of public activity of the population, impact on socio-political factors, etc. They affect power structures and their actions, as well as the solution of relevant issues of international security, interstate dialogue, human rights protection, environmental protection, intercultural cooperation, and other international problems. There's a tendency for countries to actively cooperate on transnational issues in economic, scientific, technical, and cultural exchanges, and in the free communication of people of different generations' beliefs. Thus, among international non-governmental organizations, one of the central places occupied by organizations in the humanitarian, cultural, and educational sphere, which actively influence social and political processes. At the same time, a remarkable phenomenon in the international arena, the Republic of Turkey, which has a certain impact on modern international political and economic processes, strengthening its comprehensive national power, expanding geography of national interests, increasing international influence. There's a tendency to change the country's foreign policy, self-identification in the direction of transition to position itself as a regional power. The Turkish leadership is stepping up. Let's call a technical break because Boris Georgievich, we can see. I call a technical break because one of the council members is missing now.
Я слышу. А не видно меня? Ну да, здесь как-то пропадает, да. Ну, я-то вас слышу. Я слышу вас все время, да. Ага.
Please continue. Thank you. Turkish is the tendency to change the country's foreign policy, direction of transition as a regional power. The Turkish leadership is stepping up its participation in shaping the international agenda and creating new mechanisms and institutions for regional governance, including non-governmental structures. The study of Thesis of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation, the example of organization of PRETL, Dialogue Eurasia, is an urgent scientific task that has undoubted theoretical significance, since it allows to draw conclusions about the role of non-governmental actors in the rapid development of globalization and informatization. Processes that transform the nature of international relations, strengthen the interdependence of countries, and cause the need for international cultural cooperation. The platform Dialogue Eurasia, which united intellectuals, including Russia, by the beginning of the second decade of the 21st century, emerged as an initiative movement in 1998 at a meeting of writers and journalists unions of Eurasia in Istanbul, born in a difficult period of world political relations among the Eurasian intelligentsia. The platform was a Eurasian initiative in the international social movement that set its goal to unite the Eurasian region on the basis of how spiritual values becoming a tool for implementing objective trends to broad unifying interaction and a regional international movement of the theory of the Eurasian countries. During the period under study, 1998-2012, the platform united 12 national offices and dozens of observer states attended numerous events of the organization. Since its inception, the platform has positioned itself as an international non-governmental organization that has been active in the social, cultural, educational, and scientific fields, including many large-scale humanitarian and cultural projects, implementing more than 10 projects annually, attracting the attention of the scientific community and the public to solve the problems of the Eurasian region. The object of our research is the sphere of international cultural and humanitarian cooperation, the late 20th, early 21st centuries. The subject of my research is the study of structural and functional features of the activities of international non-governmental organizations in the cultural sphere and the example of Dialogue Eurasia platform. The goal of my study is to determine specifics of activities of international non-governmental organizations in the cultural sphere on the basis of systematization of experience of organizational platform Dialogue Eurasia in 1998-2012 in the context of interaction between Eurasian countries. To achieve this goal, the following tasks are solved. Considering the role of non-governmental actors in the world of political system, describing features of activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of international cultural cooperation, revealing and analyzing the role of non-governmental organizations in the Republic of Turkey as an integral part of the civil society, as well as in the context of implementing the soft power policy, determining prerequisites for the creation of international non-governmental organization platform dialogue Eurasia, and identifying Eurasian component, track dynamic suggestions, and identify results of the implementation of its project in the Eurasian space. Scientific novelty of the thesis is in the first time a comprehensive study of specific activities of Turkish international non-governmental organizations in the cultural sphere was conducted on the basis of a systematization of experiences, which reveals interaction of Eurasian countries at the regional level, as well as considering these relations through the prism of intellectual dialogue. Distinctive feature for the thesis is the assessment of the role of international non-governmental organizations in the field of international cultural cooperation as a result of an analysis of activities of the organization Dialogue Eurasia, which none of the researchers have previously attempted. The methodological basis of the research is based on a set of research methods, principles. The systematic approach allowed the author to present the activities of Turkish international as an integral system, a complex of interacting national cultures. In accordance with the task, the study of organization based on the use of institutional and functional methods of research, which help to clarify the organizational role in Eurasia and in Russia's foreign policy, difficult period of changing monarchical situation in the early 2030s. The use of comparative method is also justified by the need to identify various factors that determine development of evolution of organization. In conducting this study, it was also extremely important to follow the principles of scientific objectivity, which allows us to avoid bias in the conclusions obtained. The source base of the thesis includes sources in Russian, Turkish, and English. Organizational, regulatory, and constituted documents of a number of Turkish non-governmental organizations, and mainly Dialogue Eurasia platform, became fundamental. Official documents of the Russian Federation, namely presidential decrees, bilateral multilateral agreement, documents of state authorities of Russia Federation, as well as material of the foreign policy departments of the platform's member countries, allowed. Can we stop? Can we take a break again? As again, we have to take a short technical break. Okay, now we please continue. Thank you. Official documents of the Russian Federation, presidential, such as presidential decrees, bilateral multilateral agreement, documents of state authorities of the Russian Federation, as well as materials of foreign policy departments of the platform's member countries, allowed us to trace various aspects of foreign policy interaction. The same group also includes public speeches, statements, and interviews of top officials, as well as influential figures. The next group consists of materials of international forums and conferences held by the Turkish NGOs, in particular the International Non-Governmental Organization platform Dialogue Eurasia. This group also includes materials published on the official websites of Dialogue Eurasia platform. Materials presented of the International Non-Governmental Organization platform Eurasia, the International Cultural and Educational magazine Years are key importance. Official documents published on official websites, which include materials of international organizations submitted by resolutions of UN Economic and Social Council and other international legal documents of the United Nations. Legal documents submitted by agreements and decisions of the CIS Executive Committee. Based on the research, the following main provisions are put forward for defense. At present, the role of non-governmental actors, systematic players in the international structure and real participants in the global governance process is increasing, since they have unique opportunities to mobilize public opinion and form an agenda in a number of areas of international life, which is an important lever of influence of global processes. In the beginning of the 21st century, Republic of Turkey, under the influence of democratic reforms, turned the scale of activities, non-governmental organizations, which at present have not been fully implemented, and the government and the environment for possible dialogue of the public on major issues of social relations and social policy. Within the framework of the thesis, the sphere of international cultural cooperation has been identified as a priority area of work of international non-governmental organizations, which is the most effective means in the field of interaction of cultures through the development of dialogue, interaction of historical and cultural processes, etc. Research organization Platform Dialogue Eurasia as a regional model of international cultural cooperation promoting institutionalization and dialogue. Boris Georgievich has gone missing again. We have to call it technical break. because one of the members of the Citation Council, okay, please continue. This research organization platform, Dialogue Eurasia, is a regional model of international cultural cooperation promoting intercivilizational dialogue. The results obtained allow us to draw the following conclusions. At present, the world community offers many opportunities for the fruitful and effective work of international non-governmental organizations. Every state participating in international relations and integrated into the global process of globalization membership in international is in particular in the international cultural sphere due to the positive effectiveness of such associations. International cultural cooperation is the most effective means in the field of interaction of cultures through expanding the horizon of world perception, fostering tolerance, forming a creative character in various fields of activity, and international organizations in the field produce an exchange of knowledge and skills of different cultures, thereby contributing to the significant development of education, science. Undoubtedly, the most important feature of the activities of such associations is the phenomenal interaction and contact between different cultures, development of intercivilizational dialogue through the interaction of historical and cultural processes. The Turkish model of civil society and democracy has its own specific features, in particular a tendency to view the civil society separately and in contrast to the central government. Turkish civil society is a part of the process of modernization and development of the democratic system formed along with formation of modern Turkey. However, their activities of various associations and organizations took place in close cooperation with the state. Accordingly, various civil society institutions, including non-governmental which included public control over the work of government bodies, studying and combating distortions of public administration, corruption, and protecting the rights and freedom of citizens. The process of economic stabilization and liberalization in the Republic of Turkey, as well as obtaining the status of candidate for full membership of the European Union, has served a major factor for transformation of the main direction of state policy, in particular, formation of a liberal attitude to the perception of personal rights and freedoms, individuality, etc. The early 21st century Turkey, under the democratic reforms, intensified the work of non-governmental organizations, but constraining conditions such as limited independence, political fragmentation, etc., can cause negative impact on the process of formation of NGOs, the power of weak influence of non-governmental organizations, civil society of the Turkish Republic. Since the Eurasian idea is a complex concept that has been in process of transformation, throughout it's necessary to study its history, evolution, and current state in order to fully and jointly understand its essence. However, the author considered only some of the main provisions of the concept of Eurasianism, which partly influence the charter and the ideology of the International Non-Governmental Organization Platform Dialogue Eurasia. It's important to Russian-Turkish Eurasianism, as well as lack of unity and presence of significant differences in Russian thought in the integrational ideology, despite a huge theoretical foundation, and in the Turkish academic circles. The understanding of Turkish nationalist Eurasianism meant an anti-Western project, the main goal of which is to preserve the Turkish national state. Due to a thorough analysis of this issue by domestic researchers, two vectors were identified, one of which is the concept of Eurasia, which from a geographical point of view indicates an important geopolitical role of Turkey. The second is directly Turkish Eurasianism, which was a set of ideas about the need to bring Turkey closer to Russia and distance itself from the West. The author has thus revealed the main similarity between different interpretations, including within the framework of organization and the studies, the desire to find ways and levels of interaction between ethnic and religious associations within the regional continental space. Dialogue Eurasia Platform defines itself as an ideological association rejecting possible organizational ideological statements were framed in the cultural terms in the effort to better illuminate philosophical views. Despite the existence of a political program among the classics of Eurasian, their attention was also focused on the philosophical understanding, which proclaimed in the framework. The postulates of the Dialogue Eurasia is determining historical choice and self-identification aimed at resolving practical goals, which include Eurasian conferences, discussions, and debates published later in pages of its print edition. Thus, the overall result of cooperation with Russia on the following, since both countries have, and after the fall of, the conditions emerge for a political, so beginning of 21st century, and which became a basis for the dialogue. This overall result of cooperation between countries is connected with the dynamics of political, trade, economic, investment projects. Thus, the overall result of cooperation between the platform member countries of the period should be recognized as a mutually beneficial in the following areas: promoting comprehensive intellectual and intercivilizational dialogue, implementation of objective trends of broad unifying interaction of various cultures and peoples, activities, social, cultural, education, scientific fields due to the fundamental nature, implementation of many joint projects and other for humanitarian and cultural purposes, contributing to creation of polycentric, harmonious, equal world order, and formation of united cultural and information space on the territory of Eurasian region. Work was carried out in several main areas: dialogue of cultures as process of interaction of civilization, tolerance as a condition of inter-ethnic communication, education as a cultural phenomenon, global challenges affect world development. The platform as an international initiative that brought together scientists, writers, journalists, intellectuals, and representatives of art world from various countries with a single but very significant goal to develop a dialogue between the peoples of Eurasian region, strengthen peaceful relations between them without prejudice to the interests of individual states organizations acting in accordance with national, religious, and state traditions. The most famous publication produced by Platform Dialogue Eurasia was the magazine Da, whose authorities were professional journalists. The magazine was informative in nature. Its main purpose was to formalize readers about different countries and cultural, social, historical, and other features. And the sphere of covered by the magazine, the function of international non-governmentalization is a consequence of development of multilateral diplomacy in the Eurasian region. Practice of such institutions of international relations in Eurasian space shows the effectiveness and necessity of spreading cultural cooperation. It should be noted that this work we have studied exclusively the cultural component of the activity of Dialogue Eurasia, and the political orientation of the decision remains outside the scope of our study. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Zalina Valerievna, thank you very much for such a substantial presentation. Dear Dissertation Council members, do you have questions to the degree applicant? Please ask questions strictly on the presentation and the key points of the study. May I ask a question? Yes, of course. The Maria Lvovna is in my, it's included in my review. Why have you chosen exactly this case, this platform for your analysis? Which criteria of choice did you use when choosing the theme of my study in 2012? Against the background of a positive relationship, this platform was an original platform active in culture and education, sphere of culture and education, and the members, intellectual elite. So this determined the choice of this platform as a subject of my object of my study. Maria Lvovna, are you satisfied? Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you. More questions from the Dissertation Council members? More questions? No, let us proceed to speeches of the Dissertation Council with their assessment and speech of the presentation of the degree applicant. I would like to ask members of the Dissertation Council, what shall we do with degree applicants' answers to your questions? I suggest it would be best if the degree applicant answers each reviewer after each review is presented. What do you think? Yes, that's okay. You agree? Yes, I agree. Yes, we agree. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay with us. Thank you. Then let's give the floor. While our session is in progress, we have not received any external reviews. That is why let's hear the speeches of the Dissertation Council members. And I would like to give the floor to Dissertation Council member, Doctor of Political Sciences, Lagutina Maria Lvovna. Thank you very much, Sergei Nikolaevich. Let me present my review to the thesis by Zalina Valerievna. dedicated to a quite relevant and interesting topic. The theme is indeed very interesting, and the thesis that we are discussing today is an independent and complete nature. Today, indeed, the activity of NGOs, of non-governmental actors, is in a highly relevant topic in the Russian researchers. And this only proves the fact that international actors already have a role. And of course, most literatures dedicated to the activity of NGOs created in Western countries. And we are used to the fact that examples found in literature most to describe Western societies. At the same time, the topic presented by Zalina Valerievna is even more relevant because indeed the role of Turkey in this process of development of NGOs, non-governmental activities and processes related is not well covered. I looked it up, and it was hard to find information on this issue. So Turkey, as an example, seems to be a very interesting object, and Turkey is quite controversial. Is as an very displays many controversial trends, development of the civil society, internal and external. So there are pluses and minuses. There are some difficulties connected with the political system of the Turkish society, and because of that, it's really important to study the Turkish approach to civil society, to which the thesis is dedicated. And I think she coped with this task quite well. And speaking of pluses, my main major interest is first paragraph, second paragraph of chapter 1, the development of institutions of civil society. I think this material is quite unique. It was very interesting to read, and so this topic should be developed further. So especially this part to identify specific features of the civil emergence of civil society in Turkey. But so I have all the positive comments are quite well described in my review on 2 pages. So let me, as usual, following the tradition, focus on critical remarks. Before that, I would like to emphasize that the main ideas and conclusions made by the author cause no objections, and in general, I support them. But I have a number of comments which I would like to present. First comment is on a bibliographic base. As the source base is quite extensive, and Zalina Valerievna has demonstrated in her presentation that as well. But I think Turkish, more works by Turkish authors should be included, because the work is in Turkish. So more is not maybe not in Turkey in the Turkish language, but who are quite active in English and even Russian. Here also, I'd like to say that use of educational literature in thesis, candidate's thesis, is unacceptable. I found a text by Valerievna and Nikolaeva on intercultural communication. Second, in the introduction, the author did not specify the theoretical approach underlying her thesis, which examines the activities of the non-governmental actors in general, and specifically of the international non-governmental organizations. Though in the text, in one way or another, the author touches upon various theories and concepts dedicated, but in the introduction, they should have been given in the introduction as well. Third, a novelty of the subject theme is beyond any doubt, as I mentioned already, but the author very modestly presented it in the appropriate section of the introduction. So I think here the author should have given much more points, which so later many points of novelty presented. On page 22 of the thesis, the author says that, I'm quoting, non-state actors, which are also called transnational actors, traditionally referred to as the intergovernmental organizations, international governmental organizations, international non-governmental organizations, transnational corporations, and other social movements. And this statement appears to be incorrect in relation to intergovernmental organizations. For me, and IGOs to me seem to be the same. So maybe the author has a different opinion. Non-governmental organizations governmental organizations cannot act as non-governmental actors. 5. In the text does not clearly justify the choice of I have already asked the question of the choice of a platform dialect Eurasia. 6. In the first paragraph of the second chapter, the author writes about Eurasian integration. This is my specialty, so I paid attention to this, and misses features of an interesting relationship. Is a triangle: Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey, and their relations within the framework of development of Eurasian integration. And in our view, this is a very important factor in the development of Eurasian integration, of greater Eurasia, and one of the reasons for choosing a non-governmental mechanism for cooperation of the above-mentioned states as the most neutral, soft, and less political. And further, in paragraph 2.2, the author again refers to the Russian-Turkish relations, but excludes Kazakhstan, whereas Kazakhstan supports Turkey's ascension to, in near future, to join Eurasian Economic Union and as a full member. And Turkey and Kazakhstan are working very closely together, so-called Turkic Council, this unifying principle linguistic unity of the Turkic-speaking countries. So this is an important factor, and here it should more attention should be paid. And finally, my final comment, in the section devoted to the evolution on page 79 of the thesis, the author also missed its modern phase, the typical mistake. Pragmatic Eurasianism, the current phase, the ideological platform formed modern integration initiatives connected with Eurasian Economic Union, Greater Eurasian Partnership, etc. And here Zalina Valerievna finishes her analysis very traditionally, works by Alexander Dugin and Professor Panarin, but without paying enough attention to the works of Timofey Tkachев, Sergei Karaganov, Fyodor Lukyanov, Evgeny Vinokurov, who's published one of the first articles on this, dedicated to this pragmatic Eurasianism, and a result analyzes, pays too much attention to analysis of ideas rather than consider the Turkish version of Eurasianism. Would be interesting what Turkish authors understand. What are the specific features, because it exists. Turkish Ernesim does exist. It should be noticed that only 2 pages are dedicated to this, so I think the author should have said more about that. However, most of my comments are of technical nature, and they do not reduce the overall positive impression of the thesis by Zalina Valerievna Zokoeva, and the thesis by Zalina Valerievna Zokoeva, Specificity of Activities of International Non-Governmental Organizations in the Sphere of Cultural Cooperation on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, corresponds to the basic requirements established by the order of 2016 on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Zalina Valerievna Zokoeva, deserves to be awarded the degree of Candidate of Historical Sciences, Specialty 070115, History of International and Foreign Policy, Article 11 of the specified order has not been violated by the author. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Maria Lvovna, for your assessment of the thesis. Let's give the floor to the thesis author, Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna, to answer comments asked by the reviewer. Dear Maria Lvovna, first of all, let me thank you for your review, which time you spent and for comments and recommendations. Indeed, I agree with some of your comments. Also, I'd like to explain that some comments in the already mentioned by other members of the Dissertation Council. So if you allow me, let me answer, give like one answer, all comments together, all the comments together, because some comments are the same. Yes, I understand, but so we decided that the degree applicant shall answer all questions after each review individually. Fair is a remark about the use of educational literature in the thesis, and this omission will certainly should be taken account in my future work. The theoretical approach on the basis of which the research was carried out is neoliberalism, which should certainly have been indicated in the introduction of the thesis, according to the constructive comment of the reviewer. The choice is determined by the neoliberal paradigm, according to which interstate interaction is based on the desire of the states to cooperate. According to the representatives of this theory, while politics is moving to a transnational stage, which means an increase in the permeability of state borders, strengthening of the role of international markets, and increasing role of interstate and non-profit organizations in the international arena. All these factors, of course, reduce the likelihood of international conflicts. As for this novelty of the study, have no objections to this comment. The reviewer's comment and present a classification on non-state fair. The question of belonging causes a lot of discussion. Thus, a number of researchers include NGOs as non-state actors. On the other hand, based on the criterion legal personality, which from the point of view of international law only states and NGOs have, most political scientists refer to intergovernmental organizations as either state participants or actors occupying an intermediate position between states and non-state actors. In this regard, it should be recognized that the chosen classification seems to expand the composition of non-state actors at the expense of international intergovernmental organizations. And this comment I will take into consideration. According to a comment on the rationale for the choice of NGOs, as an example, Platform Dialogue Eurasia, I would like to explain that in the 21st century, the process of development of Russian-Turkish relations has acquired an unprecedented dynamic and intensive character, which led to the readiness of the two countries to move from a multidimensional to strategic partnership. In the first decade of the 21st century, Russian-Turkish relations reached a very high level, actively interacting on key international regional issues, both at bilateral and within international organizations. High dynamics of political, trade, economic, investment contexts carried the need for further development and deepening of humanitarian cultural ties between the two countries. Cooperation in this area became more organized and constructive. Dialogue Eurasia platform became a subject of research as a promising and organization of cultural and humanitarian cooperation is actively developed, expanding the scope of activities, attracting new Eurasian countries to ensure productive dialogue with ensuring productive dialogue through balancing interests and searching for mutually acceptable compromise. And about peculiarities of relationship in the triangle, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey. Indeed, this is a very interesting aspect of research. In the first paragraph of the second chapter, when considering prerequisite for the formation of the organization under study, for non-Eurasian integration, as well as the integration format of EU. However, specifics of the relationship between Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey triangle and their relations within the framework of EU development remain outside the scope of my study, which undoubtedly is additional analysis. The remark about pragmatic Eurasianism is fair, since pragmatic Eurasianism also deserves attention when studying various interpretations of this trend. I have no objections. And as for detailed consideration of the Turkish version of Eurasianism, I'd like to say that such consideration Turkish Eurasianism has no historical and philosophical foundations, unlike Russian Eurasianism, and is rooted in the beginning of the 20th century. Social political thought of Turkey is one of the interpretations. Is Russian national Eurasianism shown in the activities of organizations used Eurasian. It should be noted that Eurasian platform is not an interpretation of Turkish Eurasianism because is increasing cultural cooperation and religious activity, identity. Thesis. Thank you very much. Maria Lvovna, are you satisfied? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, Fokin Vladimir Ivanovich, for a good reason, is absent, but we have his review of the thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna. Let me read as we agreed, because the review has been published at university website. I shall only focus on the key points of the review by Vladimir Ivanovich, the review to the thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna, specificity of activity of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century. Relevance of the research topic. In the modern system of national relations, the model of Eurasian unity occupies one of the leading directions in the emergent picture of the world order. The development is still quite vague because they're determined by many factors: political, economic, social, and cultural. And in addition to these factors, characterized by little predictability, transformation in the context of modern global development, they also have regional and national characteristics dictated by the deep fundamental reasons. That is why, in modern conditions, the science of foreign relations needs to constantly and closely analyze the problems of Eurasian cooperation to identify their long-term and opportunistic phenomena of international life. A special difficulty here is in the study of border civilization, represented in this case by Russia and Turkey. And finally, the relevance is also reflected in the fact that the subject of the study is the activity of one of the international non-governmental organizations, which in the modern conditions play an ambiguous role and conduct changing policy of modern international life. The thesis thoroughly examines legal status, a role in the public system of Turkey, of organization, platform, dialogue, Eurasia, and of its cultural projects. At the same time, the author set a significant number of tasks which were solved during this study. The author conducts analysis, uses critical approach, method of interpretation, of historical reconstruction, and also relies on comparative analysis. The author demonstrated knowledge of some theoretical approaches to research on the problems of intercivilizational relations and the role of the civil society in their development. She managed to partly link the conceptual part of the thesis with the methods of research and documentary sources and their interpretation. The research is based on a wide course of documents that relate to international legal acts, national legal acts, government documents, mainly from the Republic of Turkey and the Russian Federation. From the point of contribution made by the author, should be noted that Zokoeva conducted a comprehensive analysis of works of research in Eurasian international non-governmental organization, the civil society in Turkey, and specific aspects of their foreign policy, which of course gave her work an original character. The structure of the thesis causes no doubt. The thesis consists of an introduction, main part, conclusion, and bibliography. Novelty and scientific significance of the thesis. Studying the text of the thesis allows us to assert that this research is new, complex, and of practical significance. The scientific novelty of the thesis, in our opinion, lies in the fact that the author reveals the role of dialogue erasure in the cultural life of the Turkish society and its role in the civil society of the country, however, without affecting the internal political aspects of its activities. Let's proceed to the controversial provisions and questions asked by Vladimir Ivanovich. Despite the mentioned advantages, Zokoeva's thesis leaves room for topics that have not yet been resolved in her work or may be the subject of discussion. So, for example, in our opinion, the wording of the research goals on page 5. The goal of the study is to determine the specific features of activities of international non-governmental organization in the cultural sphere based on the systematization of the experience of organization platform dialogue Eurasia in 1998-2012 in the context of interaction between the Eurasian countries. Does not define the meaning of the work. The reader is not clear for the reader. For that purpose, the author of the thesis defines the specifics of activities of platform erasure. The purpose of the work of the author does not answer this question. The methodological basis of the study is rather vague. The author lists many works related to the homogeneous theoretical directions that do not fully describe the problem under study. For example, the works of Huntington proclaim irreconcilability of civilizations and inevitability of a collision between them due to the nature of this phenomenon, while the concept of Eurasianism assumes the cooperation of peoples of different cultural historical types. Works by Brzezinski is an example of the modern concept of universal civilization based solely on affirmation of ideals of the Western world. His concept of the technotronic society asserts existence of single post-industrial civilization of a universal type, which contradicts the Eurasian idea based on other foundations. Brzezinski shares the idea, which goes back to Toynbee, of irreducibility of civilizations, arguing that the arcs of tensions arise in places where they touch upon each other. At the same time, the concept of border civilizations in the thesis is reduced only to the works of Gumilov, who considers the scientific problem on a narrow ethnographic basis and does not exhaust the topic of border civilizations in other aspects. But the author doesn't even mention general works describing political and other factors of the existence of border civilizations. This is even more necessary since the policy of the Turkish Republic in different periods assumed other alliances of civilizations that go beyond the borders of Eurasianism in the interpretation of Gumilov and other Russian authors of the concept, works mentioned by Zokoeva. Thus, one of the initiatives provided for the cooperation of countries on the cultural and historical basis in the Mediterranean region. This initiative came from the governments of Spain and Turkey. An intergovernmental agreement was signed and a coordinating council was established. Thus, in Turkey, the idea of border civilizations is a popular concept on the basis of which various political combinations are formed, and therefore it requires a broader theoretical justification. In addition, it is important to find out how these theoretical constructions coincide with such elements of Turkish foreign policy as neo-Ottomanism, pan-Turkism, pan-Islamism, which also have cultural and historical theoretical foundations. The theoretical foundations of the study of the civil society used by the author in the analysis of the Turkish society are impossible without relying on the works of Bergson and Popper, which the author did not consider in her literature overview. It seems that the author failed to fully understand the theoretical foundations of her study. While describing research method, the author characterized the system approach as a complex of interacting cultures, although national cultures are neither the object nor the subject of the study, and therefore the system approach should include an analysis of other systems of relations, obviously related to the sphere of interaction of the public in different countries, or the activities of public organizations in the civil society system. This method, a comparative method of research, mentioned, but it requires clarification since it is a complex of methods of historical research, comparative, chronological, comparative, typological, etc. Each of these methods has its own specific features, but the reader doesn't know what methods were used for such a generalizing term used by the author. In the historical research, methods of working with documentary sources that are not mentioned by the author also deserves attention. For example, the semantic analysis of texts, which is the basis of any source analysis. But when describing the source base of the work, the author allowed an unjustified qualification of sources from the, for example, on pages 12-13, the author erroneously combines international legal documents and national legal acts, comparative and narrative documents related to different types of sources into one group. Some comments related to the author's conclusions are also there. On page 141, the author says, at present, it is obvious that without the involvement of the public in the system of public administration, it is impossible to successfully solve numerous global problems. But at the same time, in the same section of the conclusion, comes a contradictory statement. In the end of the 20th century, activities of non-governmental organizations became more active, acting as a new tool in opposition to the state power. Democratization of the society, therefore becoming a subject of scientific research due to great advantage that lies in the mobilization of the society. If non-governmental organizations are a counterweight to power, then how they can be included in the system of public administration without destroying it? Rather, they should be part of the general control over the activities of the authorities in the modern system of the civil society. Second, on page 142, the author says in her conclusion, I'm quoting, the Turkish model of the civil society and democracy has its own specific features, in particular, a tendency to regard the civil society as separate and in contrast to the central government. But the concept of the civil society is precisely based on universality of the opposition between power as a bureaucratic machine and the civil society as a social force. The process of interaction between the government and the civil society should lead to a compromise between the government and the society. With all questions about the concept of the civil society itself, it is impossible not to see that in this statement of the author of the thesis on specifics of the Turkish model, there are no differences from the universal model. But in the detailed description of the interaction between the government and the civil society in Turkey, the author is certainly right. 3, on page 149, the author still has to focus on some aspects of the internal political life of the Republic of Turkey, which are associated with activities of Dialogue Eurasia platform. Her opinions on this matter are not the subject of the study, and they're not confirmed. Therefore, either she's aware of insufficiency of her research or admits scientifically unsubstantiated generalizations. 4. The remaining conclusions of the thesis are justified, documented, and raise no questions. The comments made above do not affect the overall positive assessment of the thesis, which is an original study devoted to an important and relevant topic, and scientific significance of which is beyond any doubt. The thesis by Zalina, Valerievna, Zokoeva, the specifics of international activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, corresponds to the basic requirements established by the order of the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1 on of the order for awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Zokoeva, deserves to be awarded a scientific degree of candidate of historical sciences, specialization 070015, History of International Relations and Foreign Policy. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated by the thesis author. Fokin Vladimir Ivanovich, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor, Head of Department of International Humanitarian Relations, St. Petersburg University. Zalina Valerievna, please answer questions and comments made by Vladimir Ivanovich. First of all, I would like to thank Vladimir Ivanovich for his review. And as for the comment about the goals of my study, is formulated to which the goal formulated in the form of which is presented in the study, determined by the relevance of the problem, allowed the author to form a research project, conduct analysis, and come to relevant conclusions. Perhaps there should be formulated the purpose of the study in greater detail so the reader understood the main message of the author on the basis of systematization of the experience, cultural activities of the Turkish organization, Platform Dialogue Eurasia, in 1998-2012, expected to identify the role of international non-governmental organizations in establishing cross-cultural interaction between member countries of a single Eurasian space. Next, regarding uniformity of theoretical directions presented in the work, I'd like to explain that in the study of the theoretical concept dedicated to intercivilizational interaction in Eurasian space, the author relied on a significant array of sources. Can you hear me well? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Among national researchers' problem devoted to represent the historiographical and geopolitical doctrine, this study does not assess the role in the competition in the development of the world community presented by American researcher Huntington in the geopolitical treatise Clash of Civilizations. However, the conflict of civilizations of Huntington is a determining factor of future world development in connection with the increase in the role of non-Western civilizations, as well as the civilizational approach of Spengler, Toynbee, Brzezinski, and Danilevsky is really a very interesting aspect of the research problem, which deserves a more in-depth analysis. A constructive comment is made on the problem of borderline civilization. Taking into account the multidimensional nature of the problem, the theoretical basis was limited to the scope of research. Civilizational concepts have been studied, works presented in the thesis, but the author's main attention focused on the works that contain the idea of Eurasian dialogue. Some theories have not really found deep consideration in the work, including the concept of border civilizations and the concept of open society by Bergson and Popper. This I will take into consideration my future work. Comments on characteristics of research methods are fair. Thank you for your recommendation. Systematic, methodological methodology is not the strong point, but I'd like to structure of the functional features of activities in national government in the cultural sphere on the example of Platform Dialogue Eurasia. These activities aimed at developing interaction in various national cultures, which predetermined the choice of systematic approach as a research method, based on which the author presented the work of international non-governmental organization as a complete system. Among my research methods, used comparative method, which is used not only in historical science, but in broad humanitarian context. Comparison considered an empirical method and comparative is used as an empirical method, which was the reason for the lack of typological and chronological features. Indeed, the method of working with documentary sources deserve attention, historical research. All comments made shall be taken into account in my future work. Regarding inconsistency of conclusions, I'd like to explain that an important function of the international non-governmental organization is their role in establishing links between state and non-state aid segments. However, the semantic load of the selected wording is that the most important condition for the full and active participation of international non-governmental organizations in global governance processes is their interaction with the national states. This relationship takes a variety of forms and are not only businesslike and imbued with a spirit of interaction, but for the most part, international non-governmental organizations actively prefer to cooperate with the states, which brings mutual benefits. The statement about the tendency to regard civil society as separate and in opposition to the central authority is due to the fact that theoretical approaches that define the concept of civil society confirm the existence in Turkey, despite the lack of certain qualities. However, from the point of view of autonomy, independence from the government, participation in the procedure of state decision-making, the level of development of the civil society is hardly high. Specific features of civil society in Turkey can be explained by various reasons besides peculiarities of historical development, some of which were disclosed in the main part of the thesis. Regarding some aspects of the internal political life in the Republic of Turkey, which were presented in the conclusions, I'd like to explain that indeed the explanation of the reason for the termination of activities of international organization in question was not the subject of research. However, according to the construction of the research, along with the identifying a prerequisite of main activities, results, expedient ways to disclosure of the reasons for cessation of functioning in the territory of participating countries despite the positive dynamics of development of the platform. Thank you for your attention. Zalina Valerievna, thank you very much. Let us give the floor to Dissertation Council member, Koibayev Boris Georgievich, Doctor of Political Sciences, Professor, Head of Department of Political Studies of North Ossetia University.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues.
Тема диссертации Zokoeva Залины Валерьевны, тема международных юридических организаций как Института гражданского общества. В последнее время актуализирует к себе внимание как со стороны органов государственной власти различных государств, так и общественных организаций и Россообщества. Сложность изучения данной проблематики связана с тем, что начало 21 века отличается от трансформации структуры мирополитической системы, в которой значительную роль начинают играть негосударственные акторы, в данном случае международные неправительственные организации, как влиятельные участники международных отношений. Автор достаточно четко определяет роль неправительственных акторов в мирополитической системе и анализирует особенности деятельности международных неправительственных организаций в области международного сотрудничества. В диссертации тщательно изучен механизм взаимодействия международных неправительственных организаций с ООН, правосубъектность, а также роль и функции культурно-гуманитарных МНПО на евразийском пространстве, что представляет особый интерес в настоящий период. В силу указанных выше причин представляется вполне логичным, что диссертант посвятил свое исследование изучению деятельности международной неправительственной организации, направленной на активную работу в социальной, культурной, образовательной и научной областях, а также реализацию крупных проектов культурно-гуманитарного значения. Автор диссертации обратился к изучению деятельности международных неправительственных организаций в культурной сфере на примере одной организации, платформы «Диалог Евразии», которая, как известно, объединила евразийские страны на одну площадку. История и динамика взаимоотношений этих стран всегда будет актуальна и востребованной темой, как и в политологии, и в истории международных отношений. Анализ материалов диссертации позволяет нам утверждать, что автор справился с научной задачей. Постановка целей потребовала от автора исследования комплексного подхода и рассмотрения различных факторов, прямо или косвенно, влиявших на создание и динамику развития данной организации.
of development of this
Не
organization.
вызывает сомнений определение хронологических рамок исследования 1998-2012 годы, которые позволили автору как-то отследить динамику развития и получить основные результаты работы данной платформы. Исследование основано на широком корпусе организационных и учредительных источников, правительственных документов, материалов, в частности журналов «Да», материалов международных мероприятий, проведенных исследуемой организацией, речь идет о форумах, конференциях, семинарах и так далее. Диссертант ориентируется в научной литературе, о чем свидетельствует обстоятельный историографический обзор. Причем автором было включено большое количество общих и специальных работ на русском, английском, турецком языках. Структура диссертации не вызывает вопросов. В соответствии с логикой проводимого диссертантом исследования и принципом последовательного решения поставленных задач, основная часть состоит из двух глав, которые разделяются на отдельные параграфы. В первой главе детально рассмотрена сущность понятий негосударственные акторы, международные неправительственные организации, вопросы их влияния на международные процессы, правовые отношения с Организацией Объединенных Наций, а также объединительная роль НГО в культурном Автор также отмечает вклад неправительственных организаций в формирование положительного и благоприятного образа страны. В этом аспекте рассматривается опыт Турецкой Республики. Здесь следует подчеркнуть, уважаемые коллеги, что авторам убедительно показывается противоречивый характер места и роли неправительственных организаций в Турецкой Республике. С одной стороны, как показано в работе, дальнейшие шаги государства в направлении демократизации сложно реализовывать без участия неправительственных организаций как важнейшего института в данном вопросе. С другой стороны, как справедливо подчеркивается диссертантом, в государстве при значимости этих вопросов наблюдается осуществление системного политического курса, направленного на усиление контроля над уже зарегистрированными неправительственными организациями в вопросах реализации заявленных целей и задач. Во второй главе на основе глубокого анализа научной литературы и источников последовательно исследуется предпосылки создания Международной организации платформы диалога Евразии, в том числе концепция классического евразийства, российско-турецкие отношения в целом, а также раскрывается функционирование данной организации, реализация многочисленных проектов и результаты ее работы. В заключении представлены результаты и выводы диссертационного исследования, которые представляются обоснованными и убедительными и могут быть востребованы в экспертной и научно-образовательной сфере. Изучение текста диссертации позволяет нам утверждать, что данное исследование является цельным, комплексным, а также практически значимым. Прежде всего, проведенный всесторонний анализ источников позволил автору показать динамику развития и опыт деятельности исследуемой организации на евразийском пространстве. В прикладном плане работа автора является источником для понимания механизмов взаимодействия культур евразийских стран через развитие межцивилизационного диалога, интеграцию историко-культурных процессов и так далее. Более того, значимость исследования соискателя заключается в том, что новые факты позволяют рассматривать масштаб и потенциал деятельности международных неправительственных организаций. Автор дополняет научные данные и выводы, которые являются основными для дискуссий о природе НПНО на современном этапе. Уважаемые коллеги, высоко оценивая полезные обобщения, результаты и выводы, имеющиеся в работе, содержательность и значимость диссертационного исследования, следует акцентировать внимание на отдельных замечаниях и пожеланиях. Во-первых, на наш взгляд, в первой главе работы автору не следовало вдаваться в правовые взаимоотношения между неправительственных организаций с Организацией Объединенных Наций. Более важным представляется осмысление роли неправительственных организаций в области международного культурного сотрудничества на примере конкретных организаций помимо платформы диалога Евразии, исходя из тем исследований. Во-вторых, источниковая база, хотя и охватывает необходимые
it covers the necessary categories is, in our opinion, insufficient. Not all sources used by the work are classified by category, as this was mentioned already. Thirdly, it would be appropriate in the second chapter to elaborate on the topic of Office practical recommendations and the results of international organization platform validation, especially since the author has described its work in detail.
Параграф 2.3.
In paragraph 2.3, experience of implementing projects, internationalization platform, in our opinion, is too descriptive.
Однако все указанные
However,
замечания и
these comments
рекомендации
and
отнюдь не
recommendations do
снижают
not
общего
reduce the overall
положительного
positive
впечатления от
impression of
работы.
the work,
Диссертация Залины
and the
Валерьевны
thesis by
является
Zalina
оригинальным
Valerievna is
исследованием,
an
которое
original
посвящено
study devoted
важной,
to an
актуальной теме
important,
и научное
relevant
значение, которое не
topic,
вызывает
and the
никаких
scientific
сомнений.
significance of which is beyond
Публикации
any
автора в
doubt.
достаточной мере раскрывают
Publication
концепцию и
sufficiently
основное
reveals the
содержание
concept and
работы.
main content
Автореферат
of the work,
диссертации соответствует
abstract
всем
of the thesis
предъявляемым
with all the
требованиям,
requirements,
оформление работы выполнено на
and the
уровне,
design of the work was performed at a
отвечающем
level that
установленным
meets the established
правилам.
rules.
Полученные автором результаты
The
исследований могут
results
быть
obtained by the
полезны
author
при
can be
изучении
useful in
особенностей
studying
функционирования
peculiarities of
неправительственных организаций,
functioning of
используются в
NGOs
работе политических
used in the
институтов
work of
власти,
political
научно-исследовательских
institutions,
центров и
research
неправительственных
centers, and
организаций при
NGOs in
разработке
the
программ
development of
в
programs in the
культурно-гуманитарной
cultural
сфере.
humanitarian sphere.
Диссертация
So the
Zokoeva и Залины
thesis
Валерьевны
by
на тему
Zokoeva, Zalina,
специфика деятельности
Valerievna
международных
on
неправительственных организаций в
specificity
сфере
in the activities of
культурного
international
сотрудничества на примере
non-governmental
Турции
organizations in
конца
the field of
20-го,
cultural
начала
cooperation, an
21
example of Turkey,
веков
late 20th, early
соответствует
21st century,
основным
corresponds
требованиям,
to the
установленным
basic
приказом
requirements
от
set by the orders
01.09.16 о
of the
порядке
1st of
присуждения
September
ученых степеней
2016
в
on the order of
Санкт-Петербургском
awarding
государственном
academic
университете.
degrees in Petersburg
Соискатель
University,
Зукоева Залина
and the degree
Валерьевна заслуживает присуждения искомой ученой степени
deserves to be
кандидата
awarded the
исторических
desired
наук по
degree of candidate
специальности
of
07
historical sciences,
0015 история
specialization
международных отношений и экономической
070015,
политики.
history of
Пункт 11
international
указанного
relations and
порядка
foreign
не нарушен.
policy. Article
Благодарю
11
за
of the order has not
внимание.
been violated by the author. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Boris Georgievich, for your detailed analysis of the thesis. And I would like to give the floor to Zalina Valerievna. Let her answer your questions. As a made by official opponent, dear Boris Georgievich, let me thank you for your review and answer your comments. I agree with the comment on the importance of understanding the role of NGOs in the field of international cultural cooperation. On the example of specific organizations, this study work of other organizations in the sphere of cultural cooperation should be considered in more detail. Should be mentioned that work considered most famous and close in nature among NGOs is Turkic culture. This goal was to strengthen the friendly relations between the Turkic peoples and spread the common Turkic culture. According to your comment about the source space, indeed, the source space is quite modern, but this is because in process of study, we adhered to the necessity of using only relevant sources in preparation of our work. And during my research, we found that a number of sources in literature presented at the end of the work sufficiently fully gives the idea of problems of the research area. Comment on practical recommendations also constructive. Indeed, the final part of the study does not provide any practical recommendations. Positive experience of the organization suggests that similar to Platform Value, it should be advisable to create an international or regional organization that would host international forums, conference, festivals, and other large-scale projects on international cooperation in the field of culture, art, and education in Eurasia. This is due to the fact that modern international relations are undergoing profound transformation. And given the deep transformation, the global political economy increases the importance of building a platform that would build on the principles of mutual respect, lack of confrontation, conflict, and will preserve cultural identity of all Eurasian countries. Paragraph 2.3 is indeed descriptive. Was too obsessed with descriptive style because of the use of organizations' printed publication as the main source, which affected the overall style of my text. Indeed, it's difficult to disagree with the opinion according to which such an approach is position of the text is mostly not justified. And I shall certainly take this into account in my future work. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Zalina Valerievna. Boris Georgiev, are you satisfied? Yes, I'm quite satisfied. Thank you. Thank you. Now let us give the floor to Ospanova Aygerim Nuralieva, Doctor of Political Sciences, Head of Department of Regional Studies, Eurasian National University, named after Gumilov, Kazakhstan. Thank you very much. My review to the thesis on specific activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation, an example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, submitted for the degree of Doctor of Historical Science, Academic Specialization 070015, History of International Relations and Foreign Policy, the relevance of research topic, transformation of a system, a political system, due to many factors. Leading one is blurring of state borders, globalization, and emergence of many non-state actors, primarily NGOs. These changes in the global political system create new opportunities for specialists in the field of international relations to have a deep and comprehensive understanding of their place and role in the modern world. The author of this thesis took advantage of this unique political and scientific situation and presented the results of a study of the features of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation on the example of Turkey in the end of 20th, early 21st century. The thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, is an original, independent scientific work, and relevance of her research is beyond any doubt, despite the fact that the subject of NGOs in the field of domestic and foreign historiography. Breadth of coverage of aspects of the research as well as integrated approach made this study highly relevant and novel. The thesis identifies structural and functional features of activities of international non-governmental organizations and is on the example of platform dialogue Eurasia. The author considered in detail such features of international NGOs as subjectivity and legal status, legal relations with the UN, and has also defined the role and place of cultural and humanitarian NGOs. The author's approach to the activities of NGOs in the field of cultural cooperation is noteworthy. The thesis presents features of functioning of NGOs in the Republic of Turkey. The author notes a significant contribution of INGOs in the development of interaction between Eurasian countries at the regional level on the example of platform dialogue Eurasia. The suggested approach to the problem reveals novelty of the study. The author demonstrated profound knowledge of the concept of Eurasianism, as well as the understanding of specific features of Eurasian direction in the foreign policy of countries. The thesis is filled with historical facts and examples, which gives an impression of the fundamental nature of the work. The author skillfully operates historiography of the problem and constantly conducts dialogue with domestic and foreign researchers, which indicates good understanding of the theme. In the course of study, the author analyzes a significant number of sources, submitted documents in Russian, English, used documents in Russian, English, and Turkish. The source base of the research is made up of organizational, regulatory, and legal documents, as well as government documents. An important element of the study is availability of materials from international forums and conferences, such as protocols, final resolutions, etc., as well as materials presented in the printed publication or journal of the organization. Using analysis, the researcher successfully solves research tasks. The role of NGOs in the Republic of Turkey as an integral part of the civil society in the context of implementing this soft power policy, revealed and analyzed prerequisites for creation of international NGOs platform dialogue are identified. The results of organizations, projects, and positive experience in the Eurasian space have been identified. The structure of the thesis is fully consistent with the research objectives set by the author. Work consists of 2 chapters, a conclusion, the list of sources and literature. The introduction provides a general description of the work, degree of scientific development, scientific novelty, goals and objectives of the study, methodological basis of the study. The main provisions for defense are formulated. First chapter of the study defines features of activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of international cultural cooperation, including different interpretations of the concept of international non-governmental organization by researchers, legal personality, etc. The second chapter is dedicated to activities of NGOs, NGO platform Dialogue Eurasia, and it defines prerequisites and origins, including the final part reveals dynamics of development and positive experience of this organization. In the conclusion, the main results of the study are presented, which follow the main goals. The thesis by Zalina Zokoeva has a high level of scientific novelty. As noted above, is an original scientific work. The thesis independently solves research problem as well as formulates significant scientific statements to be submitted for defense. The scientific uniqueness of the work is in the fact that the author considered the role of INGO, Platform Dialogue Eurasia, and paid its attention to many aspects that served as prerequisites for its creation. The main conclusions have been tested in publications in scientific journals, as well as in speeches at various scientific, Russian, and international conferences. It's also worth to mention there's many aspects connected with international INGOs, starting from the moment of formation till the end of its existence. And in general, the author is a fundamental research where creation and development of an IGO, Platform Dialogue Eurasia, is considered in several angles, and the chronological framework 1998-2012 allows the author to draw unique conclusions about the contribution and experience of implemented projects. Thus, despite the mentioned advantages, the thesis contains several controversial provisions that require explanation by the author and open prospects for scientific discussion. First, with regard to literature used, it should be noted that the author uses a very modest number of foreign works, including those of participating countries. Review of other international NGOs in the cultural and humanitarian sphere deserves more attention. Without paying much attention to the issues of relations between the international NGOs with the UN and the issue of legal personality, the author does not give any assessment to the positions of other member states, in particular features of their policy, the main reasons for joining the organization. And in the second chapter of the thesis, pays too much attention to the positive experience of the organization, Platform Dialogue Eurasia, and the implemented projects. At the same time, it would be appropriate to note the difficulties of dialogue on regional global issues. However, these comments are of a recommendatory nature and do not reduce the overall positive opinion of this work. The thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna on specificity activities of international non-governmental organizations in the field of cultural cooperation, on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, corresponds to the main requirements set by the order of the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna, deserves to be awarded the degree of candidate of historical sciences, a specialization 070015, history of international relations and foreign policy. Article 11 of this order has not been violated. Thank you, Aygerim Nuralievna. Let's give the floor to the degree applicant. Welcome. Thank you, Sergei Nikolaevich. Dear Aygerim Nuralievna, first of all, let me thank you for your valuable comments and recommendations and for your detailed review. And let me give regarding the most number of foreign works used by the author. Unfortunately, a limited volume of candidate theses do not allow us to properly refer to the works of researchers from other participating countries. But in the future, I shall certainly take this into account. It's also regarding more attention to other Turkish Republic, and indeed a study of other organizations in Turkey in sphere deserves more attention, but this text is explained by future deep, in-depth analysis. And that in my work, I reviewed at the most well-known NGOs the role of it to strengthen relationship between the and the assessment of positions of other member states, which unfortunately is also due to limited opportunities to present the results of such analysis in the candidate's thesis. And according to the recommendation of distinguished reviewer, it would be appropriate to note the difficulties of dialogue on regional global issues. In this regard, I would like to explain that there were difficulties in this dialogue. In meetings of the platform, there were situations, clashes between parties, and after all, this organization was an open where a person could freely express their opinions. At international forums held by the platform, people had opposite political and ideological views. As researchers, they argued, sometimes asked each other awkward questions, but they all remained citizens of their states and representatives of their cultures. Among also the and member of the Writers Union of Kazakhstan, etc. But all the members of the platform agreed with its aim to establish dialogue and mutual understanding, peaceful. Thank you very much. Aigerim Nuralevna, are you satisfied with the answer by the degree applicant? Yes, of course. Thank you. Okay, now let me present my review to the thesis by Zalina Valerievna. I will not read, give all the details of my review because it is available at our web page. So I will focus on the key provisions which seem important. First of all, relevance is beyond any doubt, because indeed in the modern world, the development of interstate and non-governmental participants is a key issue. It should be mentioned that in the thesis describes various approaches to the study of global cooperation, and the credibility of the results of the author is beyond any doubt. And the author studied various regulatory research documents, but papers of various organizations. The thesis explores various wide range of aspects and for various approaches which are relevant today. And the author has analyzed a broad number of civil society of the Turkish Republic. The structure of the thesis is logical, is beyond any doubt, and the thesis contains scientific novelty, consists extension of a wide range of views about the work of INGOs in the field of international cultural cooperation. This topic is by no means exhausted, and hopefully the author will research this topic in the future. However, there are some controversial points and issues. First, thesis pays great attention to the role of INGOs and examines in detail the legal relations within the UN. At the same time, it would be appropriate to analyze the work of NGOs in the Turkish Republic in the end of 20th, early 21st centuries. Would be appropriate to consider the social and political system of Turkey, to focus more on pan-Turkism, which seems to be very significant in this way. Some other topics certainly deserve more attention. For example, in the second chapter, would be worth giving at least a brief description of the organization's work in other member states. It would be also useful to use more publications and materials on the issue of civil society, the social political system in the Republic of Turkey. In the second chapter, paragraph 2.1, the thesis should have described in detail the history of origin, development of Eurasianism, and disclose the ideological content. In this regard, we would recommend that the author analyze and compare Russian and Turkish Eurasianism. The comments, however, do not change overall positive impression about the thesis. Search submitted for defense has high degree of originality, demonstrates the ability of the author to conduct comprehensive analysis of sources and important documents, and is characterized by novelty and practical value. The thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina, Valerievna on the theme specificity of the activities of international non-governmental NGOs in the field of cultural cooperation, on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, corresponds to the basic requirements established by the order of the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1 on the procedure of awarding academic degrees at the Petersburg University. And the degree applicant Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna deserves to be awarded the degree of candidate of historical sciences, specialization 07-0015, History of International Relations and Foreign Policy. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated. Zalina Valerievna, thank you. Could you please answer my questions? Welcome. Zalina Valerievna, please. Beg your pardon. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Dear Sergei Nikolaevich, thank you very much for your review and for your comments, your remarks. Regarding your first comment, would be considering social political system of Turkey. Indeed, the Turkish model of civil society without in-depth analysis of the social and political system of Turkey in the late 20th, with early 21st, without a detailed study in trends of pan-Turkism, pan-Islamism. However, the paper considers the Turkish Eurasianism, including the main directions and the framework of various approaches to Eurasianism in Turkey, and also presents a description of the activities of NGOs on the example of analytical centers and NGOs of the Republic of Turkey in the field of cultural cooperation. I agree with your comment. It would be worth to give at least a brief description of the organization's work in other member states. Unfortunately, the limited limits of candidates' thesis do not allow us to properly address this issue. I beg your pardon. Regarding using more publications and materials about the civil society and the social political system in the Republic of Turkey by Turkish authors. Indeed, the thesis mostly used works by Russian, such as Kiriev, Nikolai Gavrilovich, Meir, Mikhail Serafimovich, Shlikov, Pavel Vячеslавich, and others. This is due to the fact that the works of these authors differ in the choice of the most significant problems in the life of the Turkish society, and their analysis is based on thorough knowledge of the factual material on a wide range of various sources and research publications. Turkish domestic. However, in the future, this constructive comment will certainly be taken into account. Next, about too much description, in-depth with that, I'd like this description of Eurasianism has no historical philosophical base, unlike Russian Eurasianism, which is based on the fundamental ideological and theoretical basis that goes back to the beginning of the 20th century. There are various interpretations of Eurasianism in Turkey's social and political thought. One of the interpretations closest to domestic was reflected in the activities of which used Eurasian as evidence from the very name. However, it's important to note that Eurasian platform did not represent an independent interpretation, and this is a very interesting aspect which requires more in-depth analysis. Thank you. Thank you for your in-depth answers to my questions. Dear colleagues, we have not received any questions online, and that is why let us proceed to the next point. Let me read a review submitted by the academic advisor, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Vagia Vatanyar Saidovich. Is very detailed. So I will focus on the key points made by Vatanyar Saidovich. Is Zalina Valerievna proved to be independent researcher who can state and implement goals and objectives, analyze her results, and use various instruments. The thesis is dedicated to one of the most relevant issues of modern history, is activities of INGOs, relevance of the research topic is due to the fact that the author touches upon the key issues of global development and various problems of modern development. In her study, the author used a number of research methods, system approach, which enabled her to put activities of Turkish INGOs and give a full system as a full system and solve tasks and goals she set herself. Scientific novelty is in original complex comprehensive analysis of Turkish INGOs or Turkish NGOs, and main scientific provisions and conclusions made by Zokoeva, Zalina Valerievna are well grounded and reliable. The results of this study have practical value, can be used in preparing educational programs, lectures and seminars, bachelor's and master's programs, such as INGOs, cultural and humanitarian sphere. Significance of results is in conducting independent study based on analysis of numerous Russian and international sources and literature. The thesis is logical, consists of introduction, 2 chapters, and conclusion. Goals set in the introduction reveal the research topic and answer questions. The thesis by Zokoeva, Zalina Valerievna, on specificity of activities of INGOs in the field of cultural cooperation on the example of Turkey, late 20th, early 21st century, corresponds to the main requirements set by the order of the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna, deserves to be awarded the degree of candidate of historical sciences, specialization 070015, history of international relations and foreign policy. Academic advisor, doctor of historical sciences, honors Vatanyar Saidovich Yagya. Dear colleagues, since our session is held in remote access mode, do you have any unanswered questions regarding the thesis? Do you have any unanswered questions regarding the remote access mode? No, we don't. Thank you very much. Now we have the opportunity to, before the voting, to take a technical break to discuss the results of today's defense. Do you think we need such a break? No, not really. No, we don't. I also think we don't need a break since all the reviews are positive, and so we can proceed to voting. Please. I now put the question of awarding to Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna the degree of candidate of historical sciences, academic specialization 070015, history of international relations and foreign policy, to the open individual vote. Let me remind you that a decision of the Dissertation Council shall be considered positive if more than a half, but not less than 3 members of the Council present voted for it in accordance with Article 23 of the order. Let's proceed to individual voting. May I ask you to call the degree applicant Zokoeva. She's not Zokoeva, she's Zokoeva. Oh, she's Zokoeva, yeah, thank you. Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna. Let's proceed to individual voting. Council member Lagutina Maria Lvovna, your opinion, please? I support awarding the degree. Thank you. Council member Koibaev Boris Georgievich, your opinion? Yes, I am for awarding the degree. Thank you. Council member Ospanova Aigerim Nuralievna, your opinion? Yes, I support. And thank you. And me as a chairman, Pagodin Sergei Nikolaevich, also have a positive opinion and support awarding the degree. Thus, dear colleagues and guests, let me announce that out of 4 members of the Dissertation Council present, 4 voted for, no one voted against, and no one abstained. The decision to award to Zokoeva, Zalina Valerievna, Zokoeva, Zalina Valerievna, the degree of candidate of historical sciences, academic specialization 070015, History of International Relations and Foreign Policy, has been made. Dear colleagues, since our meeting was held in the remote access mode, do the Dissertation Council members or the degree applicant and others present have any questions, comments on the procedure of today's meeting? No, we don't. No questions. No comments. Let me, on my behalf, congratulate Zokoeva Zalina Valerievna on awarding the degree of candidate of historical sciences. The session is, I declare the session closed. Let me thank all the members. Please stop online broadcasting. Thank you, everybody. We congratulate you. Thank you. May I give my closing remarks? Dear Chairman, dear members of the Dissertation Council, let me give you my big thanks to you for your remarks, for your suggestions and questions, which give me an opportunity to have more understanding of my work. Let me also thank Mr. Chairman, Sergei Nikolaevich Pogodin, for leading our scientific discussion. Let me thank my academic advisor, Professor Yagya Vatanyar Saidovich, for his support in conducting my research. Unfortunately, he was not able to participate today, and especially I would like to thank the Dean of the School of International Relations and Department of World Politics and Humanitarian Relations for their attention, Professor Kolesnikov for sincere interest and help in preparation of the final version of my study. Also, I'd like to thank Professor Takadov, who supported me during the entire period of preparation. And I'm also very grateful to all colleagues who gave me support and advice. And I'm also very grateful to my family, my parents, and my friends for their support. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your kind words to the university, to the School of International Relations. We would like to wish you all the best in your future career and great achievements. Thank you very much and goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.